Okay folks, welcome back. This is your old pal Hondo doing another video for you on some old reels and a newer reel. Today we're going to do a video on one of my favorite reels of all time. And I think it's one of the most iconic reels of all time. Just looking at it, and even the model number of this reel is iconic in itself. Instantaneously you will know. Either when somebody says Mitchell-300 or 300X or 320 or 302 or it had many different model numbers and different designations, but the classic iconic name, which would go always down in history, will be Mitchell-Garcia or Garcia Mitchell or just straight Mitchell 300. It is one of the most iconic reels of all times. It's highly recognizable. It is a piece of fishing history. They made them from the 1940s into the 1950s through the 60s and 70s. We have two examples in front of you right now. We have one from a modern standpoint of a 300, and we have a 1960s Garcia Mitchell. These were made in France. These came with two spools. They came with a graphite spool, and they came with a aluminum spool, which I only have the aluminum spool, thank God. The graphite spools were notorious for dry rotting and breaking over time. That's why they came with two spools. One spool was made for monofilament, and the other spool was made for braided lines. Very reminiscent to the modern reels. They come with two spools as well for the very same reason. Now, this was a very revolutionary reel for its time. The older reels, it was the first reel that actually stopped on different, mechanism, like right here on the mechanism. It actually stopped where most reels would only stop up to here, but they would go out of control back then. And most these spinning reels of the time didn't have a locking mechanism, so this was a highly sought after reel for that very reason. Gear ratio on these were sort of low. They were like in the wheelhouse of a spin cast reel, of the time, or a bait caster of the time, which was about 8-to-1 gear ratio, which is pretty respectable even for an older reel like this. But the one downside about these older reels is that it's very noisy when you reel it. It makes this annoying clacking noise. It's to be expected with a lot of these older reels. I've found that with a lot of the Johnson reels and some of the Zebco spinning reels of the time, and some of the Flugers and Abu-Garcia reels of the time. They made a clacking noise. Now you can tell this one's a 1960s reel because of the anti-reverse switch right here is inverted into the body instead of a whole switch on the back end of the body. Now you can tell it's an older model. It has the teardrop body style reel, all metal body, all metal. This little right here, the release bail mechanism, when you click it over, it locks it into place and then it closes. Very simple reel. No ball bearings in it. It's just a straight gear on gear driven system. Pinion gear. Very simple reel to take apart. This is its modern counterpart, which is 7 gear ratio, 7 ball bearings, very fast, graphite body, aluminum spool. Both of them are made out of aluminum, oxidized aluminum body, aluminum spool. Now the upside about this one is, this one's a tank. This one will last you forever. As long as you maintenance it and clean it yearly or 2 years or whenever you need to. If something comes up, you need to clean it. This one will last you a few years. It's not as good as the all metal one because it's made in China and it's made from inferior parts, but it's still a good reel for what it is. For a disposable reel, I would buy this over a lot of the other models because Mitchells are just outstanding reels. It does come with an extra spool. It does have a ball bearing also in the bail right here, where the line goes through, and when you pull it, it pulls with the bail instead of pulling against it. And this makes it to where it'll be good for using braided lines. Not so much with this one, because braided line will eat through the little eye guide right here because it doesn't move. That's a plus with these reels. Okay, enough jawing. Let's get into tearing this reel apart and showing you how to take apart, and some cleaning tips on how to take this reel apart and clean it with different solutions. You can use kerosene in a bowl. You can use WD-40, Real Magic, Reel Cleaner on the gears and the body of the reel. If you're having a nagging issue with your older Mitchell's little bail's not closing whenever you go forward, it's usually because you haven't cleaned them. I'll give you tips on how to clean that as well. It needs to be oiled and cleaned. You could take this screw here out, and just don't take it out all the way, just to a point, and then put a little bit of oil in there, and put a little bit of oil on this side of the bail as well. The first thing you want to do is, it's very simple. You push this little button on the inside, comes out the spool. Now, you really don't need to clean out the spool underneath it. It doesn't need to be cleaned. It does have this part right here, but if you wanted to take it apart, you can unscrew that and you know, pull that out. You don't need to do that unless it's really dirty and the drag's not working right and you need to oil it. Now, once you do that, you can take off the handle crank, which is very simple to do. With the Mitchell-Garcia, and went flying everywhere. Now, just remember to put your parts in a spot where you know where they're going to be next. Now, once you do that, now you take the body apart. You want to use a small flathead screwdriver, preferably a adjustable screwdriver, and you want to unscrew all the screws. Okay, now once you got the screws out, now you can remove the body of the reel. Usually if you flip it upside down, the gears won't get all messed up, mixed up. Now once you get to this point, this has fresh grease on it, so I've just serviced this reel. Once you get to this point, you can take all these little gears off and just, you know, pull this gear here off right here, and there should be like a small washer underneath that. Just keep that in mind. If you got that little small washer underneath this gear here, and here's that small washer. You take this gear out here like so. It rides on top of this part right here, and this comes right out as well. Now, if you want to clean the body of the reel, you have to be very mindful though. This little switch here is the anti-reverse switch. If that comes out, you're screwed. It's hard to put back in together once you take it out. Now, the best way I like to find to clean the body of the reel is just take a paper towel and just wipe all that crap out of there, and you know, wipe all the excess grease off and then re-grease it. Or you can just stick WD-40 on it or what have you. Now, this part right here is the center gear that makes it move up and down. There's a certain way you got to put it in. If you put it in wrong, the reel won't function right. There's a little grooves on the bottom. If you put it in like so, at this direction, at the bottom, it'll fully engage the up and down mechanism, which helps the elevator go up and down with the pickup pins. Sometimes you just gotta go in there and adjust it until it you know, goes up and down. You know, that's how you put that gear back in there. You pull that gear out, and then you take a small tool and you kind of pull this up right here, and once you pull that up, you can move that out of the way. And there's these two screws here. You have to unscrew these little plates, this plate here. You unscrew it. Once you unscrew that, the pinion gear should come right out like so. You can unscrew this little plate here. These two screws come loose. Once you unscrew that, you can take a Q-tip and poke it through the middle there and go around in there. Take a paper towel and wipe out all the old school grease on all the sides there. Wipe that little plate off. You could take a toothbrush and some kerosene and put it in a small bowl like this and just scrub the crap out of it. Once you do that, you want to put this little plate back in this, the skinnier slot end down and the wider slot end at the top, and then re-screw it back into the frame. Grease that bottom and grease the front of that before you screw it back in and put it back in there. You want to take this head off. You're going to need a socket or what they call a Mitchell tool. Now, size socket you want to use is a 13. Now you take that 13 size socket and put it right here on the side here, and take off that nut there. Once you take that nut out, loosen it up, there should be a washer underneath the nut, and right here's a washer that goes underneath it, and you can just basically at this point pull the head off the body, and right here's the gear, some of the gears underneath it. And what that does is you clean that gear off with a toothbrush and then re-grease it, and you're good to go. To get to the center here, there's a little groove in this little tripping mechanism. Now this is what trips the gear. The bail basically is this little round disc. It's the tripping mechanism. Now if you got an issue with this not going up and down right, whenever you got an old reel that's not working right, it's not closing or engaging, what you do is get to this point with the reel. This is the area that you need to clean. You could spray it with some WD-40 or some reel cleaner. Spray the whole thing out. Once you do that, you could take a toothbrush and lightly clean it like so, but be very mindful of that spring. That spring right here is to engage it. If that gets knocked out of whack, you're going to have to put that back in, and you don't want to break that spring either. You just take a toothbrush and lightly clean it. Once you clean it, you clean that little spot right here, right there, with the oil. It also helps get the oil inside of there. And once you get to that point, with the oil, like I said, you take some oil, regular oil, and drop it right on that mechanism there after you clean it. And then you take a paper towel and you just wipe out the excess on the inside, because sometimes it gets really, really dirty on the inside of there. And that's one of the main problems if that's not engaging right that people have with these reels, is that is improper maintenance and it doesn't have any grease or oil on it. Once you put a little bit of grease and oil on it, she should be ready to go and to fish. And once you do that, you could take these gears like this here, every one of these gears, and you wipe off the elevator mechanism too, and then re-grease it. You take the gears right here and put them in a small bath. You could put kerosene in there, like I said, or you could spray it with some reel cleaner, WD-40, and scrub the hell out of this the gears, and then take a small paper towel, wipe them off, and then once you dry them off, recoat them with grease. Use Lucas grease. You could use specialized reel greases like Hillbilly Snot or Quantum Hot Sauce or Quantum Pen lubrication. It doesn't really matter. I use bearing grease. It works. Now once you do that, it's time to reassemble the reel. And also you want to put a little bit of grease on this. If it's really bad, you could take some steel wool to that pinion gear setup. Once you do that, you re-grease everything. You put a little bit of oil on everything, and she should be ready to go to put back together again. And that's what we're going to do. The first thing you're going to do first is we're going to put back the body of the reel, which is the first thing you always put back on this is the body, in order to put all the other stuff back in. Now, there's 3 little washers that go here. If I can find the damn things. Okay, small little tiny washer goes right here on top of the spot where the pinion gear goes. You put 2 small washers here on top of it. There's 2 of them that go on top of it. You lay the tripping mechanism this way flat, not the other way around like that, because that's what trips the gear mechanism. There's a little notch on it that should go right back into place fairly easy. There's a little notch right there, and you put this back on there. Little washer that goes on top of the nut. You can use pretty much any type of tool, like the size 13 wrench, socket wrench, and you could buy a specialized tool. We're gonna tighten it down a little bit. You don't want to make it too tight, you know what I'm saying? Just tight enough, snug. Because you tighten it up too much, it won't reel that easy. So that's plenty, just to tighten it up a twitch. Okay, once you get to that point, we could reinstall this little body right here. Like I said, that has to go, the wider end has to go up underneath the gear on the reel, and the narrower end goes down. You re-screw that back in once you re-grease that all out, and once you're done, clean it with some kerosene, or you could use WD-40, depends on what you want to use. Now you have to replace the this is the pinion gear. You replace it by putting it in flat. The flat end goes up and the rounded end goes at the bottom. Make sure you grease the bottom, not the top of this, when you shove it back in there, so it makes it a lot easier for the action to go up and down. Just make sure you grease that pretty good, and I think it's already really well greased in there anyways. You don't want to use a lot of amount of grease. You only need a little bit. So now once that's in place, you can return this gear wheel here. Oops. I'm sorry, you have to return the elevator plate, pinion gear elevator plate first. Now this end right here has to go like this at the bottom when you replace this gear. This is the first thing you want to replace in here. You kind of want to adjust it so you don't have to take it apart again later. Oh shoot. It goes right here on this little knob. Now it's working, so it's getting a full up and down elevator. So that being said, we're going to re-grease it because my hands basically took all the grease off of it. You know, you want to re-grease that little wheel. You want to grease the teeth of it up like so, and you re-grease that again. I have to re-grease it because I touched it. And now we're gonna, that's all you need to do really right there once you put that back in. And you want to return these gears back into place right here on the other side of the body of the reel. You just place that in here. I don't think I got any grease on that in there. And put some more grease on them gear wheels. Because every time I take it apart, my hands are, you don't need a lot of grease, you just need a little bit. Whatever excess you got on there, just take it off with your hand. And, you know, you want to replace this gear with the shaft into the other side of the body of the reel, like so, and it should just go right in there. Now this gear goes right here, but you need to replace the little washer that goes with it in order for it to go on there, and it should slide right on there like that. And this gear wheel faces up like this, This smaller gear right here should face up because that's what goes in contact with this gear here to move the elevator up and down when you're using this reel. You can put a little bit of grease on that like so. And once you do that, after you clean everything, you want to slap this back inside the reel. It's not very hard to do. And make sure you wipe the excess off your fingers. I know there's easier ways to do this, but this is the way I do it. So once you do that, you can slap the body of the reel back into place, but you got to do it very gently or you'll knock it off out of whack. Okay, it goes right in there, and now we can replace the screws, and this should work fine. Put the screw in the back here like so. Sometimes screwing it in is more of a pain in the neck. All I like to do is I like to get a few screws going before I put all the other screws back in, or even tightening it up, so we can test it out to see if it's working right. And I'll screw this one here in, and I'll screw the other one in. You don't want to screw them in too tight because you'll strip the screws, and finding replacement screws for these are impossible. Okay, you only want to put 2 screws in for the test. You know what I mean? So just get 2 screws in there. Don't have to tighten them up all the way. This is where you put the handle back on it to try it out. Now the handle's a pain in the end. Okay, you got the handle in, and yeah, she's working. Okay, she's working, and there's no major issues. She's making that winding noise. Now sometimes you put that gear back in wrong, it won't work at all, right? And that's a lot of mistakes that people make when you take these older reels apart. Well, I can just leave the handle in there, put the last screw in, and we're pretty much done after this on how to clean it. You could stick oil. Really, the only thing you need to put oil in is right here, and then the center of the reel. And after you clean out the bail section of the reel with some WD-40, and then clean it out with a paper towel and, you know, basic cleaning with a couple of Q-tips and stuff like that will do it. Okay, we got all the screws tightened in. Don't want them too tight, but when you re-grease it and clean it every so and so, it makes the reel last forever. Now that we got it all clean, we can put the spool back into place. Check it. There's the drag system right there, and there you go, folks. That's a fully restored and cleaned, how to clean and fully restore a old school Mitchell-300 Garcia. This will work on the 1970s, early 80s, 1970s, 60s, and 1950s 300s and 302s. So this should be a template for all of those reels. I hope y'all like this video on how to disassemble and take apart an old 1960s Mitchell-300 spinning reel. So if y'all like this video, please hit the like, share, subscribe, and subscribe to your old pal Hondo from Hillbilly Tactical. You put God first, he puts you first every time, and you know what else, YouTube? God loves you, so does Hondo. Peace out, YouTube.